day 8 of being a girl, and I've gotten some messages that are saying that I need to be calling myself a woman and not a girl. And I didn't even know that some women were offended by being called girls, so that's really good to know. But for me, the word girl feels great because I never got to be one growing up. And it feels very able to make mistakes and growing and changing and evolving, whereas the word woman feels very strong and confident and powerful, and that still intimidates me a little bit. So I'm gonna keep calling myself a girl. Hope that's okay. Love ya.
All right, guys, so it is a damn shame that in 2022, and what is supposed to be the greatest country on earth, the greatest country in history, we're having conversations about what is a woman, okay? Because up until literally 15 minutes ago, we've known for thousands of years what a woman is. But for whatever reason, we're actively considering a Supreme Court nominee that seems to not know what a woman is anymore, okay? But with that being said, Ms. Ketanji Jackson, the person I'm talking about here, she actually got a follow-up question from Ted Cruz about the what is a woman issue, and I want you guys to check it out.
So yesterday, under questioning from Senator Blackburn, you told her that you couldn't define what a woman is, that you were not a biologist, which I think you're the only Supreme Court nominee in history who's been unable to answer the question, what is a woman? Let me ask you, as a judge, how would you determine if a plaintiff had Article III standing to challenge a gender-based rule, regulation, policy, without being able to determine what a woman was?
So, Senator, I know that I'm a woman. I know that Senator Blackburn is a woman, and the woman who I admire most in the world is in the room today, my mother. It sounded as though the question was... But let me ask, under the modern leftist sensibilities, if I decide right now that I'm a woman, then apparently I'm a woman. Does that mean that I would have Article III standing to challenge a gender-based restriction? Senator, to the extent that you are asking me about who has the ability to bring lawsuits based on gender, those kinds of issues are working their way through the courts, and I'm not able to comment on them. Okay, if I can change my gender, if I can be a woman, and then an hour later, if I decide I'm not a woman anymore, I guess I would lose Article III standing. Tell me, does that same principle apply to other protected characteristics? For example, I'm an Hispanic man. Could I decide I was an Asian man? Would I have the ability to be an Asian man and challenge Harvard's discrimination because I made that decision? Senator, I'm not able to answer your question. You're asking me about hypotheticals and well, I'm asking you how you would assess standing if I came in and said I have decided I identify as an Asian man. I would assess standing the way I assess other legal issues, which is to listen to the arguments made by the parties, consider the relevant precedents, and the constitutional principles involved, and make a determination. Okay,
Yeah, so in a nutshell, what Ms. Ketanji Brown Jackson is saying here is that, when it comes to the hard questions, when it comes to the tough stuff, I can't really give you an answer, okay? I'm going to try to, correct what I said yesterday and by saying, hey, I know that, such and such and such is a woman. I know that. But, when it comes to answering questions about, legal cases, I can't do that, right? Even though, you're trying to become a Supreme Court judge, right? But again, the hard questions shouldn't really be hard, right? Because what you should say is that, no. A woman is a woman, a man is a man. Okay, that is what she would say in a sane world that's not playing games, right? But hey, there's some parts of this world that are not playing games when it comes to this whole gender stuff, right? They're actually dead serious when it comes to who you are biologically, and when push comes to shove, when shit hits the fan, what you were born with actually does matter, right? What is in your imagination, what you're telling yourself in your head, does not matter. And that is what's happening in Ukraine, as there are reportedly trans women that are being turned back at Ukraine's borders because they are biological men. So they're not allowed to leave the country because men are supposed to stay and fight. Okay? Again, when push comes to shove, right, all the games go out the window. Men are expected to step up, right? All the feminism nonsense goes out the window. Women are leaving with the kids and the children. Men are staying. Even those who identify as women still got to stay, right? Again, you are blessed to live in a country like the United States where we are allowed to play these games with reality instead of a country like Ukraine, in which, you know, again, when ish hits the fan, no, we're not playing these games, right? We're not playing these games, okay? And I find it fascinating how, despite this news, you're still seeing the NPCs who support anything that the mainstream liberal media tells them to support, still out here waving their Ukrainian flags, right? They're not out here protesting for trans rights in Ukraine. You don't see that, but you see people walking out of Disney, right, over the fact that teachers can't teach kids about sex in kindergarten, or the fact that, you know, a teacher may not like the fact they were born with a certain genitalia in kindergarten. Okay? Again, I find it amazing how this is happening. But let's read a little bit about what's going on here in Ukraine, and I hope that this wakes people up to the reality of the world that we actually live in here. Quote, as strange hands search her body and pull back her hair to check if it was a wig, Judas looked at the faces of the Ukrainian border guards and felt fear and despair. Quote, Ukrainian border guards undress you and touch you everywhere, Judas says. You can see on their faces they're wondering, what are you? Like you're some kind of animal or something. Judas is a transgender woman whose birth certificate defines her as female. Legally, there is no reason why she shouldn't be allowed to pass with the thousands of women who are crossing Ukrainian borders to safety every day. Yet on March 12th at about 4 a.m., after a long and humiliating search, border guards determined she was a man and preventing her passage into Poland. Okay, so I wonder why the border guards determined that this person was a man. I wonder why. Okay, is it because these border guards know what a woman is? They know how to define what a woman is? Right? So how in the world can Ukrainian border guards, who I imagine are way less educated than Ketanji Brown Jackson, right? Somebody that's currently being considered to be a Supreme Court Justice of the United States. How in the world can they determine what a woman is? They're not biologists, but Miss Ketanji Brown Jackson can, right? Again, it goes to show you, just because you're more formally educated doesn't mean that you're actually really an intelligent person, right? A lot of these people that go to these fancy Ivy League schools, they may have some book sense, but their common sense is nowhere to be found, right? It's nowhere to be found. But these Ukrainian border guards, again, how did they determine that this person was a man? How did they determine that this person was not a woman? Well, they checked the biology, right? And they didn't feel like they had to be biologists to do that. Okay, once they looked under this person's skirt or pulled out their pants or whatever and saw that they was swinging, okay, they was like, oh no, you got to go back, right? You got to go and fight, okay? You're swinging, right? So, hey, it is what it is. This is the world. When push comes to shove, I'm telling you, all these games go out the window. The feminism thing goes out the window. I'm not saying no women are fighting in Ukraine, but all the stories about, the women taking up weapons and doing this and that, they proven to be, at the very least, exaggerations. Why is that? Because, again, when ish hits the fan, everything goes back to the way it's supposed to be, right? Where everybody knows is true and correct, right? Which is that men and women are not equal, right? We may be equal in terms of our value, but in terms of our roles and what we do, okay, our roles in society, we're just not. Okay, gender roles exist for a reason, and they are a function of biology, right? Some of it may be socially constructed, okay? Some of it might be, but a lot of those social constructions are a function of biology, in my opinion. When Ukraine imposed martial law on February 24th, all men aged between 18 and 60 were banned from leaving the country. Since then, it is estimated that hundreds of Ukrainian trans people have attempted to cross the border. The Guardian has been told by activists and aid workers that despite their legal status as women, dozens have been mistreated and pushed back at the borders, with many fearing for their lives in the event that Russia's transphobic regime takes over. Well, to me, it sounds like, hey, according to this article here and according to the wokes, the Ukraine government is transphobic, right? So you're dealing with two transphobic governments here, okay? Allegedly. But I don't think they're actually transphobic. I think what happens is, again, when ish hits the fan, they're deciding that we're not playing these games anymore, that the men have to stay and fight, right? That's what's happening. And there's a reason why they're doing that. The reason why is because if you're just allowed to just switch your gender, right, or whatever, what happens is that you can easily get out of situations like that, okay? Where it's like, oh, well, I'm a man and I don't want to fight. Well, you know what? Instead of going down as a you-know-what, okay, a kitty cat for not standing fighting, hey, I'm a woman. And therefore I got to leave with all the other women, right? You have a whole lot of people switching their gender simply to get out of having to go to war, to get out of what is traditionally expected for men to do, right? And that's the problem with just being able to just switch your gender, okay? The same way in sports, if you're a man and you're not that good at competing against other men and you really want to be a champion, you really want your name in the record books, in the United States, nowadays, you can just switch your gender. Say, hey, I'm a woman now. Take some hormones for a couple years, go out there and compete and dominate women and become a champion and potentially go to the Olympics, right? That is what is allowed in this country, right? But again, Ukraine, when ish hit this fan, they was like, no, we're not allowing this because they already see what could happen if people just allowed to do this. That's a very easy way to get out of having to fight. It's an easy way to get out of having to do what men traditionally have to do. According to the International Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Trans, and Intersex Association, Ukraine rates 39th out of 49 European countries for its overall treatment of LGBTQ plus people. Gay marriage is not allowed in the country. The Christian Orthodox Church considers homosexuality a sin, and there is no anti-discrimination laws to protect LGBTQ plus people. Again, I find this hilarious. The NPCs, the far leftists that are telling us to stand with Ukraine no matter what. Ukraine, their social agenda seems to be in opposition to everything that they claim they're for. Okay? Again, these are the same people that say people on the right support Russia because Putin is supposedly a racist, homophobic, sexist bigot. But it seems to me that Ukraine is also racist, sexist, and homophobic as well too. Right? So again, are you guys, the people that are, supporting Ukraine blindly, are they bigots? Okay? Are they supporting Ukraine because of their bigotry? Because I can make the argument, right? What Ukraine is doing sounds a whole lot like what the people on the left say that, hey, we're not for that, right? But for whatever reason, they're still waving those Ukrainian flags. Since 2017, trans people in Ukraine have been legally recognized but must undergo extensive psychiatric observation and a lengthy bureaucratic process before their gender can be reflected on formal documents. Caught up in this complex process, thousands of Ukrainian trans people had no personal identity document or certificate when war broke out. Quote, martial law says all males are obliged to serve in the military so they can't leave the country, says Alina Shevchenko, 39, a human rights defender and the chair of Insight, a Ukrainian LGBT plus organization and one of the few public organizations in the country that works with trans people. Quote, technically the law applies to trans people as well, including both certified trans men and trans women who had not changed their documents, but it sounds like Ukrainian border guards are preventing even trans people with a valid certificate reflecting their new gender from leaving Ukraine, and nobody knows why. Well, actually, we do know why. Because the Ukrainian border guards are not about playing games with people, right? They're like, listen, we done checked you out. You swinging down low, right? You are a person pulsing with testosterone, right? You need to go back there and fight, okay? You got to fight with all the other men, okay? That is what's happening. And all the trans men who claim that they want to be men, they should just stay out of principle. They should stay out of principle. They shouldn't be trying to flee because, hey, I'm a man, right? And out of principle, that means that you should stay and fight. But again, I don't see anybody out here protesting against the bigotry going on in Ukraine. Okay, it's almost as if it doesn't exist. Why is the mainstream media not covering this issue more? Because every time there's some supposed bigotry in the United States, like the so-called Don't Say Gay bill in Florida or Texas trying to prevent children from castrating themselves, there's this big uproar from the mainstream liberal media. But when it comes to Ukraine and their bigotry, in which they're literally sending trans women back to basically die in a war, crickets, right? You got to support Ukraine, right? Support Zelensky. Support all this stuff. It seems like people only care about so-called social justice when the perceived violations of social justice or social injustice is happening in the United States. But when it happens abroad in places like Ukraine and China, it's crickets, it's silence. Nobody says anything about it because it's not in the best interest of the Democrat Party or the mainstream liberal media for people to actually protest about those things. Again, I find it amazing how this works. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.